Oh, I wasn't waiting for nothing. I was waiting for that. No. Thanks, man.
So they don't even have.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and call to order the August 8, 2022 Rome City School District Board of Education meeting, and I'll ask to all of you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll now accept the motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 18, 2022.
Move it.
Moved by Mr. Nash and second by Mr. Rincey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Blake, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We do not.
Okay. Move on to the report of the superintendent of schools.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Pretty quick tonight. Hiring is moving along. We're pretty much at the point now. We're looking for a few additional reading teachers, hopefully, although the pickings have been slim. And teaching aides and teacher assistants seem to be the biggest problem. So it's a kind of a universal issue across the area. But as far as the rest of the staff goes, we're in good shape. We're not falling into those buckets of stories you might be hearing from other school districts. So thank you to our building administrators who have been hot on the trail of trying to get hired up before the end of the month. And then Mr. Morton, who is on vacation this week and not here, he's worked pretty hard too to try and make sure we're fully staffed. Thank you to our custodial staff, and we have Alex here tonight to present a quick report, but they are working diligently getting the buildings prepared. We will be doing walkthroughs with the board towards the end of the month once they get a few more classrooms done and ready to go, but they've been hard at work just trying to make sure the buildings are prepped and ready to go for the for September, which is outstanding. And student board members should be coming on at the next meeting. STAS has been successful at securing a student board member, so we should have them join us for the first time at the end of the month. And then finally, our summer programs are wrapping up. So we had a successful 4-4-4 program. Thank you to Madison and Levesey for everything they did to operate that program up at Joy. Went up there last week to see their final celebration, which is an outstanding time to see the kids working out. And then our supported learning program at Denty and Stroud is also wrapping up again. Have spent some time over there visiting with the kids. They had a field days a couple of weeks ago. That was outstanding, just watching them do different athletic competitions. I am going to give a lot of props to Mr. Carter. For those that don't know Mr. Carter, he's an elementary support learning teacher. He did a tug of war against his entire class. If you've seen him, you might think he can beat all of us in the room in a tug of war. He's a pretty big guy, but I think he let them win. I'm not certain about that, but he did accept my challenge to take on the whole class. So good for him, but it's just good to see the kids in the buildings and seeing our teachers doing great things for the kids. So those programs are all wrapping up in a couple of this week. And we should be off and running after that. As Alex knows, it's pedal to the metal for the rest of the month, trying to get the buildings ready for September 1st when teachers return and staff return for beginning of the year.
Perfect. Now, the student board member, I know initially there was some talk about maybe splitting it up among a number of students. Is that what they're doing? Or
No, they found an individual student. Yep.
Yep. Okay, good. Look forward to meeting whoever that person is. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Before we start, I know tonight is going to be there's going to be a number of people that want to comment, more than usual, and it's a very hot button issue, and I know people are very passionate about their feelings on the subject, and I encourage you to be passionate, but I would also ask that you kind of keep your comments limited to the subject at hand and not get personal about things. Okay, I think we're all striving for the same thing, which is improving the academic performance and experience of our students. So let's try to keep it, let's keep the comments limited to some professional comments and not get personal about things. Okay, I know the group of people that I'm looking at now, I don't know that I really have to worry about that, but there are some that might appear that might take a little different tack about that. So with that, we will begin the public comment and put my glasses back on. I apologize. And it looks like Tracy, you were the first one. So come on up, or you can stay in your seat if you like. It's up to you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you. I'm a parent, taxpayer, educator in the district over 20 years in the community. Just going to highlight some things. I did share my thoughts with you as a board on some concerns. I know tonight you've had a tough road and a lot of conversations, a lot of focus groups on it, and a lot of as far as what to do with redistricting. So I know we're down to kind of two options tonight. One is to basically have K4, 2 5/8, 9 12, and then the other option for us is K4, 5 6 7 8 9 12. Those are the options that I've been hearing, and my belief is that's what you're going to vote on tonight. I've communicated mainly my concern with the one option, that's having the 2 5/8. I've been fortunate to have a lot of different hats in this district, see it from different lenses. I was a substitute teacher, I was a teacher, I was assistant principal and principal the last 15 years. So I've been in a lot of the buildings and I've had a lot of interactions and I've seen a lot of things. And the one thing that concerns me the most in hearing is we're just kind of putting out thoughts, you know, what could this look like? And going through the building renovation at Stroud, I was so impressed with the community coming behind to renovate that building that long needed it. But we passed the referendum overwhelmingly. And it was 5 years before we got to the point of figuring out what we were going to do. And in that process, and this was because we had an idea, and okay, now let's figure it out. In that 5 years that passed, we lost a lot of money. We lost inflation, we lost capital projects. We tried to figure out what we're going to do with the kids. We paid architects to come up with designs for the New York State School for the Deaf. What if we put them here? What if we put them there? And by doing that, we lost a lot of great things out of that project. We lost a mezzanine that would have seated 1,200 kids in the auditorium. We lost a hallway that would have connected the upstairs to each other. We lost an athletic field. We lost a parking lot. We lost the renovation of the stairwells. So in that process, we lost a lot. And my concern is I'm hearing, well, if we put the 5 and 8 together, we'll keep them separate. Well, if you've been to Stroud, I can't keep 7th and 8th graders apart, let alone 2 grades. And then also consistency, you know, consistency of what are those educational programs. So I share with you a lot of concerns I have with equity with kids. Middle school is one of the toughest age groups, and you can, as adults, I hear adults sharing those experiences. It is the toughest age group for kids. They're coming up with their homeworks, they're transitioning, they're trying to figure themselves out. You put technology on today. I'd never want to be a kid today at this age with all this stuff. And we're going to keep them apart, and then we're going to bring them together in the high school. And again, the first year the new RFA opened up, the first 2 years, it was tough. Those kids, we first thought, well, let's transition them. We'll build them an academy. We'll keep them separate. Those kids fed on top of each other. It was 2 years, and it really didn't settle down until the kids started coming back from the high school or from the middle school as a whole group. That cohort is so important to bring those kids together. We saw some of the challenges when we eliminated the 5 6 daily and put them in the elementary. But again, we're working on things with our counterparts at the 6th grade. I know transition is important, but you can do those things without separating. I think separating is going to create more problems. You talk about reproducing extra programs, busing. We had problems busing kids from Linden to Cypress in after-school programs, and that's when busing was normal. I mean, this last year, we couldn't even run normal routes, let alone after-school programs. So I'm really concerned in this day when we're talking about shortages of staff, programs. It's just, like I said, the model looks good, but if you start putting it on paper and start doing the checkoffs, there's a lot of things that have to occur. And again, the equity piece I also believe in, because now it's again, who's going to go to this building, who's going to go to that building. That was the biggest thing that I found when I moved to Rome, New York, is what school did you? Were you a Staley kid or were you a Stroud kid? And again, we overcome that. We brought this community together as a team. And now the kids are proud to be from Stroud. And I'm concerned with that, with the plan going forward. So again, these are the options that you guys are looking at. I'm a 6-8 guy. I graduated from that program. I have nothing against it, but I'm understanding we're working with what we have. But I challenge you to look at some of the points that I shared with you. I appreciate everything that you've done in making this decision. I know it's not easy, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tracy. Next is Christina Sturz.
Chris Curry's lifelong proud Roman. teacher now at RFA, and also president of the Rome Teachers Association. I did actually write my remarks down so that I won't wax well, because I know a lot of people have lots to say. So two things that we've been hearing repeatedly are the big picture and what's best for kids. And I want to just comment on these remarks. As far as the big picture, I think the big picture is the thousands of kids that I've educated and my colleagues have educated in this district. So when we talk about the big picture, and sometimes the comments made, in the classroom, we don't see the big picture. I would argue the exact opposite, that the big picture is really what we're seeing the most clearly. And when I worked as a vet, and I was seeing my clients in the exam room, nobody ever said to me, well, you're just dealing with your patients and your clients and you're part of the hospital, so you don't understand the big picture. You don't know how everything works in this entire hospital. Because as part of that team, I did know what was going on in the big picture. And the same thing is true in the school district. Between all of our staff, between our building reps, exec officers, we have an internal structure that really allows us to see the big picture very well. So I think that when we talk about the big picture, we need to think about the fact that the educators that are doing it every day, we see the big picture in the thousands of faces of kids that we educate better than anybody else. And I know I've said something similar before, but I don't think that that point can be overstated. I really don't. Also, what's best for kids, right? And a lot of times what's best for kids becomes almost like a buzzword. And don't question what's best for kids, because if you do, that means you're not kid-centered or kid-friendly. I'm again going to say that the people who know what's best for kids are the people who are educating these kids every day, day in, day out. We're the ones with them all the time. We're the ones that see it every day. So if we're talking about education and educational needs of our kids, we are the ones who are the experts in the room. And what we feel is the most effective thing for our kids is what should happen. Tracy actually said a lot of the other things I was going to say. So I'm just going to say ditto to Tracy instead of reiterating every single one of those points, because he really literally took the words out of my mouth. Equity wise, I do want to echo the fact that I do not believe that 258s will be equitable. I don't. Knowing how resources are allocated, knowing how things happen, knowing what happens when budget cuts happen. Unfortunately, I would like to think we would have 258 schools that were equally staffed, equal resources for kids, equal opportunities. I'm not going to get into specifics. I could come up with several examples of how already I know that's not going to happen. Supported learning students. We have staffing consolidations with supported learning. We have many supported learning kids who don't go to their home schools because they have specific needs, and we only offer those programs at those specific schools. So what's happening with 2, 5 through 8? So is 1, 5 through 8 going to be the supported learning school? All the kids go there. Only certain kids with certain needs get one or the other. Again, unnecessary. All of our kids could be together in a cohort, 5th and 6th grade, 7th, 8th, 9th through 12th. Having the kids together is the most equitable way and the most efficient way to allocate resources. It's just a simple fact. Let's see, last but not least, transition wise. So part of the problem with transition is we don't have a transition plan in this district. It's not that the transitions are inherently problematic. It's that we haven't taken care of that, right? So kids are resilient. Kids go through so many things. And if we developed a transition plan that actually made sense, the transition between a K4 to a 5-6 to a 7-8 to a 9-12 would not be as problematic as it is. We just haven't done it. We do not have a concise plan for transitioning our kids. We could build that. That's something that we could definitely all build together. So in closing, really, you've heard me say it 100 times. There's a lot of reasons why we as the RTA support a 5-6 and a 7-8 versus trying to do 2 of the 5 through 8. And I really hope that when you consider this motion later tonight, that you will vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, Julie, is it Ramos or Ramos? I'm sorry.
You can say it either way and I'll answer.
I want to do it
But I
the
want to hear
correct
you
way.
boldly are.
Ramos. Deputy household I was raised in.
There you Vice
Well,
President of the RTA, I teach at RFA, so that I'm not, really have a lot of skin in the game. I've already written you as well, twice with my feelings about it, so I'm not gonna wax eloquent, as my sister said. I think Tracy made some great points. I do think, I guess I had the question, of have we looked at some of the discipline data for the 5 through 8 groups? And if one of the concerns was parents having 5th graders and 8th graders together, I think you overestimate the ability to, it's like herding cats when you say, well, in no uncertain circumstances will the 5th graders be near the 8th graders. They're up and down the stairwells as it is now, and we're hunting them down. And I did haul duty at RFA because I wanted to see what exactly are the problems, and you can't fix them without knowing what they are. So to say, and I'm just gonna like back up Tracy on that one, it's impossible. You are not going to be able to separate them. And I just don't understand why instead of physically separating them, so it's not an issue. You're not going to have to create manpower for that. You're not going to have to patrol the stairwells. You're not going to have to chase them through the hallways to keep them away from these age groups where they're doing different things. They're trying out different things that are age appropriate, testing the waters things. And if you don't want the 5th graders with the 8th graders to say, oh, well, we'll just separate them. What it creates is us chasing them around more and educating less. And so when you talk about equity, those kids who are maybe in the hallways who need that extra hand, well, now you're chasing even more of them because you have the mentorship of the 8th graders onto the 5th graders, and they learn very quickly what not to do, which is not efficient for us to nip in the bud. So like, as I said, I've already written 2 letters. I was pretty to the point about how I felt. And it's in your hands. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Next is Jared Button.
Stand off the side. I'm Jared Bunchon, one of the new RTA secretaries. I also work at Gansevoort in the 2nd grade building, 2nd grade classroom. I'm not gonna go crazy. Also, I wrote a couple of letters to you guys also. I can't say more than what they already said. So, but I do think the one thing that I wanted to shed light on before you can make your decision today is I wasn't at Staley, and I'm hoping that you get to hear the wonderful things that Staley offered when it was a 5-6. But I was there when we tried to force a K through 6 into a building that was designed for older kids. So my question and thought, hopefully when you're sitting here today, is Stroud, we just built a beautiful Stroud. I mean, I've been there multiple times. It's amazing. And the facility is amazing. And you're going to try to do what we did at Staley and try to take a young group of 5 and 6-year-old or 5th and 6th graders and force them into a building that was not designed for their needs. I look at the classrooms at Stroud and they're beautiful. They're designed for 7th and 8th grade or 7th and 8th grade learning. And we already saw it didn't work at Staley. I know Staley had its own flaws, and I'm not going to bring up that because it was a school that's now underwater. But trying to make kids learn in an environment that they weren't designed to learn in is a huge downfall. And I think tonight when you're going to make your decision, to think about that and say, well, that was a huge problem at Staley. And then hopefully today you hear about the successes of the grade levels coming together. And I think I wasn't there. And like I said, I feel the 2 individuals who've talked already can tell you the academic side of it. So between that, when you make your decision also of putting a 5th and a 6th grader in a building that wasn't meant for them, just think about that before you make a vote tonight. Thank you for all you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared.
Next is Roberto Angelico.
It's gonna stay back here.
I'm sorry, Roberto.
So you'll be able to tell very quickly that I'm not in education, and so I'm not speaking with the same history and experience that these people have. And I'm really kind of here for I have one issue. Okay, first of all, again, I thank the board and all of you who work in education in Rome. We're very appreciative of what you do. We know how hard it is. And so I don't want anything that I say to be taken as though I don't respect you or, because I really appreciate what you do. And I think most of us do. First of all, I'm very happy about, I don't think we're talking enough about that. We figured out this K4 thing, and I think that's a big deal in itself. And I'm very appreciative for that. And, I understand that those are difficult, that's a difficult decision to make. I tried to research the 5-6 versus 5 through 8, and there's really no definitive answers. Like, if you're not an educator, I really can't figure it out. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and there are pros and cons to both of those things. So I really can't comment too much on that. I want to ensure, however, that whichever way you go with this, that we are lifting up all children and that all children are being treated equally in terms of resources, staff, participation. And when I say that, I'm talking about children from all socioeconomic histories, where they live, the kind of families they come from. I think we need to start to concentrate as much on those children as we do on the children that already have support at home. Their parents are involved. I think we need to give that attention to all kids. Just please remember that everyone benefits from being together. Children whose parents are more involved, they will get something out of being involved with children who maybe their parents who don't have much time. Single moms, people who don't, English isn't their first language. Those children all need to be together. I can't speak for the NAACP, but I am on the focus group. And I just want to let you know that as you make these decisions on how you're going to distribute, what school children are going to, and how they're going to be allocated, that we are really urging you not to make super schools, not to make schools that are receiving more resources, and that you distribute those resources equally. Those children who go to Gansevoort deserve everything that the children who go to Rich Mills deserve. And I think that's a very, very important fact. And we're going to be just kind of keeping an eye on that and making sure that that happens. Again, last thing I want to say, we just want to lift these kids up and give them an equal opportunity. That's what's good for our society. That's what's good for our community. This community cannot go further until we take those kids who need that extra attention and we get behind them and we support them and we lift them up. So again, I thank you for everything that you've done so far. And I just hope that you'll keep this in mind as you move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, Carrie Campbell.
I'm gonna stay here. I gotta say, it's easier when you guys have the podium. Kind of gives everybody a place. But
I agree. I'm not sure why it's not up.
I'm Carrie Campbell, and I'm the mother of 2 students at Bellamy Elementary School. My girls are going to 3rd and 6th grade. And it's my oldest daughter's last year at Bellamy, and I'm gonna be so bad. But I substitute teach and I'm a PTO member. We're looking forward to the new school year. My girls love our school. We love our school. But there's been some changes there, and they're gonna be hard to swallow. We have lost some great teachers from Bellamy, and it's really hard. Our art teacher has left. Our librarian has left, who was there for 12 years. And she was more than a librarian. She was like 3 people in one. And some are for personal reasons, but some of it's overcrowding. Some of it is because now, beyond having art on a cart and music on a cart, now we're gonna have library on a cart. That means that most likely the elementary school kids at Bellamy will not get to go into the library and look at the books and pick out what they like. Now the librarian, whoever this new one is, and I'm sure she'll be wonderful, is going to have a cart with books that she picked out, hopefully that the kids will like. And that's what you get to do. And stay in their classroom even longer, in the overcrowded classrooms, in the winter time, when you don't get to play outside in recess. And it's incredibly difficult. Okay, a lot of these kids, they don't even get to go to Jarvis Library or another library. But we've got this beautiful library that now kids most likely will not be able to go to. This is a 3rd special that we have on the cart. I understand that redistricting had to come first to get this figured out, and I know you guys are gonna figure it out tonight, but there's kids right now that need help in elementary school. We need to have space now. It needs to be figured out. I know I've mentioned trailers and I've emailed with Mr. Blake about it, and from what I've seen, he said the state has not approved them yet. I'm assuming that's still true. But if that was put through last year, how are we following up on it? Who can be approached about this? There's got to be more than one way. I'll email that person instead of emailing you. You know, I don't mind doing that, but there's got to be something. Don't just let this go until 25, 26. Our kids right now need this. We need more space. My daughter, who's going to graduate this year from 6th grade. So in the past 3 years, since 3rd grade, when she left for the pandemic, like all the other girls did, all the other kids. Now, if we haven't had art, we haven't had music, and now we're not going to library. I mean, those are things that we need. We need all these things. The kids need to move around more. I'm asking that you please make sure to take steps to help the kids right now. I know redistricting is important, and you're working very hard on that, but we need help right now to have more space and to make sure that the teachers and staff have everything they do to make it work. You know, I know that's one thing that Mr. Blake says often, that we always make it work. And I know you do, everybody does. But there's only so many times you can ask somebody to do the very most that they can. That's how teachers get burnt out. And then I'm hearing now that teachers aren't allowed to have printers in their rooms anymore. Please stop me if I'm wrong. But across the district, teachers will no longer have printers in their rooms, and they will need to input a code into a copier to get things printed that they need. How many printers do you guys think are in elementary school versus the number of staff that need to use them? I know at Bellamy there's 4 or 5 maybe, but there's a whole lot more staff than that. Do you know how often you need to sit down and print out an extra thing? Or print out a copy of an IEP or a behavioral report? Or you get a student that comes in, a new student, and the student doesn't speak English. Okay, let me quick go to the computer. I can print out this worksheet in the language that they speak. Well, guess what? Now you can't do that. And speaking as a substitute teacher, I use the printers. I use them at the computers. Because when I come in, as hard as the teachers try, they don't always have an updated subplan. Maybe that subplan was written in September, and I'm coming in November, and you can't do the same thing. So I need to find it. Well, now I can't print it. I understand the district wants things to be done on computers. Computers are important. But when you're talking elementary school level, kids need to write. They need to make sure that they're learning how to write, holding a pencil the right way. Developmentally, every elementary school teacher can tell you that. It's incredibly important. And honestly, you guys must think it's important too, because now we have handwriting without tears, which was usually kindergarten level. I've seen it even up to 2nd grade, because through the pandemic, the kids weren't writing. And now they can't write. You can't read their handwriting in 2nd grade. Letters, numbers going the wrong way because they haven't had the experience. They need these things. And the teachers need their printers. Don't tell me that you're trying to save money when you're trying not to burn out our teachers. Give them what they need to work. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, Derek Levesey. And I hope I pronounced that correctly.
It's close enough.
Okay.
So my name is Derek Levesey. I am the father of a handful of kids here in the district. I actually last year was a coach here in the district as well for the football team. And I did nearly 2 decades of public school teaching before moving here. Just want to say one thing as far as the feeder school thing. One of my schools I worked at was about the same size as RFA, and we had 1 feeder. The counselors were able to go down to that school, work with other counselors, figure out, any kind of kids, students at risk. We knew grades coming up. We knew kind of the transition that when they went into the freshman year, it was as if they just walked across the hall. Another school I went to had 5 feeder schools. It was the most chaotic thing. We had to have, I think, 6 counselors just for freshmen. And to try to get them moved into a level appropriate class was absolutely disastrous. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen here because it's 5 versus 2, but there are challenges because there's different teaching. I did want to ask a question though, as far as being a coach, for nearly 2 decades. We're seeing a reduction in certain sports for participation. I think we've all said that here. Kids are different today. They'd rather play on their iPads or video games or whatever. We're seeing a reduction in those sports. If we have 2 schools, we're going to split whatever is a modified which you're already combining a 7th and 8th grade together. Now we're gonna split that in half. What is the plan or for example, let's say football? Are we gonna have 2 completely separate football teams? Or are we planning to combine those and busting those over? Has that gone through? And if we decide to, let's say we combine, we have 2, what happens if one school doesn't have enough to participate? What are we gonna do then? Let's say a girls' basketball team, they don't have enough girls. Are we going to now combine the schools? We're gonna bust them over. Those are questions. And then when we start talking about finances, football equipment, ridiculous. Coaches, stipends, busing, games, all these things. Has that been discussed? I've been to several of these, I've spoken before, but has that been discussed as far as what are we going to do for that? Because my fear is that if we don't have a lot of participation right now, which our freshman numbers this year in football were very low, if we already have kind of a small team and we now split it up, 15 kids on each football team, we're really not giving the kids the best opportunity, and they're probably going to even participate even less. So that would be my question.
Thank you. Megan Grennis.
Okay, so I'm was asked by the RTA to come and speak on behalf of Staley. I taught there for quite a few years, but I'm going to just give you a little background about who I am myself, just so you can have a better picture of where I'm coming from. So my name is Megan Pokinis, and I'm a 5th grade teacher at Gansport, and I had to write it down as the teacher in me, I'm sorry. I'm a mom of 2 students at Ridge Mills and 1 starting preschool in the fall. I'm a 2004 graduate of Rome Free Academy. So to say I have been invested in this district is a bit of an understatement. I've held a position here in the district in some capacity since 2009. I've experienced Stroud and Staley as middle schools. I was a 7th, which was the 7th and 8th grade, 9th through 9th grade configuration when I went. I was moved to the new RFA my junior year. Right, Cass? She experienced it with me. We were sent in, we were told 9th grade would be kept separate. It wasn't. I watched as my little sister was moved from Stroud to Staley in 7th grade while Stroud was being renovated the first time. I then experienced her moving back to Stroud while Staley was then being renovated. I saw my elementary school, Fort Stanwix, close. I saw the push for Ridge Mills and Gansport to be closed, but went unsuccessful, and instead they closed Club. I came back to Rome after college and watched and experienced every elementary school in Rome renovated. Those students and faculty were asked to be patient and resilient while their school was made better. I was hired at Staley when it was 5th and 6th grade, and I experienced the magic that Staley was at the time. I also had the opportunity and privilege to teach in a co-taught classroom for a few years. I also had the opportunity and privilege to loop with my 5th grade class to 6th grade. I experienced the switch from 5-6 to K-6. I experienced the challenge of going from a 6th grade teacher to a 2nd grade teacher without much support and experience and understanding of how important that primary education is. And most recently, myself, as all of us, got to experience teaching in a pandemic where we were asked to teach remotely, then in person, and then hybrid, and then to maintain all those skills, all while trying to make a positive environment for our students, as well as my own children at home. So I write all that information because it seems our district has not been settled in some time. I know growth is important and it's crucial. However, it can also create the situation, or change is important, but it also can create the situation we have experienced in this district since roughly 2003. All that stuff has happened. Our children deserve an education that is well-rounded, unique, and fulfilling, and stable, and all done in an environment that they feel safe and secure. And so the question is, how do we make that happy? So there seems to be the 2 models. And I'm just gonna kind of take a minute to discuss it from a teacher's perspective on which model we would prefer. So the most recent suggestion of the 5-8, I feel that I'm speaking on behalf of most of the teachers in the district when I say we're not on board. In fact, the teachers' response to an RTA survey that asked which model was preferred, the majority of the teachers preferred the 5-6 model. I lived and loved that 5-6 model for many years and can say with the right administration, the 5-6 model is the most effective configuration that we can go with right now. I would like to state the obvious first. Socially, emotionally, physically, a 9-year-old should not be in school and interacting with a 14-year-old. You cannot tell us that they will remain separate, as there will be many shared spaces and opportunities for the students to interact throughout the day. We're going to work so hard to keep them separate, just put them in separate buildings. Teachers, administrators, and staff are still going to be presented with maintaining 2 very large schools. And as stated in the previous board meeting, Staley did not work because of the administrative revolving door. What team of administrators are going to be on board with tackling such a large building consisting of students of ages 9 to 14? And it's been proven that the ages 9 to 14 are some of the most challenging ages in a child's education. I spoke earlier that I was hired at Staley when it was the 5th, 6th grade building, and I said that it was a magical time. I can also say with the utmost confidence that most of my colleagues that taught at Staley during that time would gladly return. Many of us still refer to those days as the good old days. And during those years, we were led by 2 great administrators. So why did it work? I'm going to give you 4 reasons why it worked. Number 1 was collaboration. Every single 5th and 6th grade teacher were in one building, which allowed for several opportunities to collaborate, creating many different learning opportunities within the building for our students. As the current 5th grade teacher coordinator, I would love if every single one of my 5th grade teachers were in one building. Teachers work closely together to create meaningful, creative, and fun lessons. And I remember being a first-year teacher and needing help. So I would run next door and I would walk into a room with 10 seasoned veteran teachers eating lunch, and they would be more than willing to help me. Number 2 is team teaching. Many teachers were able to team teach. This gave teachers the opportunity to become an expert in a certain content area. Despite what was said in the previous board meetings, elementary teachers are very much on board with team teaching. We have to keep up with a very rigorous and ever-changing curriculum, so to become an expert in one of those content areas would be amazing for us. They also, someone in the last board meeting made a comment about how the 5th graders weren't ready for some of the, the 5th grade teachers didn't exactly treat the incoming 4th grade students as elementary kids. And we did team teach, but it gave the 5th graders a chance, developmentally appropriately a chance to understand what it means to team teach and to switch teachers. Number 3 is the extracurriculars. There were so many more opportunities for our students that were age appropriate. Examples being, we held spelling bees, talent shows, we had a glee club, art clubs, school dances, robotics, just to name a few. Dimension U tournaments, one school, one book. Our academic house tournaments, Staley was broken up into 4 houses, and we used to have competitions. Which 5th grade house can do the most multiplication problems? And it was a friendly competition, but the kids loved it. Our chorus was a force with 450 kids. Our orchestra and band were massive. Each classroom would have at least 60% of the class participating in one or more of those activities. Every single 5th and 6th grader had an equal opportunity for experiences like field trips, extra help, after school clubs, activities, guidance counselors. They all had an equal number and an equal opportunity. And the last thing was that Staley was the only school in Rome not in need of improvement during the guidance and administration of Karen Miller and Fred Zamperetti. We ended up off that list. I remember we had a meeting because that's when the opt-out started. More kids started opting out of the test. We didn't have as many kids taking the test, and that was the only reason we were off that list. My last thing is I also had the unique situation of personally knowing and working with Fred. He was a veteran administrator, and he held a role as an administrator for over 50 years in several districts around the state. And I spoke with him a lot. He was my father. And he would often say after he retired, a building that size requires a team and not a pair. He felt strongly that a vice principal or a dean of students for 5th grade and a dean of students for 6th grade is what was best for that school. It was too large. Staley only encountered extreme challenges when we could not sustain a seasoned administrator. Several people were hired, but had never been responsible for their own building, let alone a building that size. I do feel strongly that many of my colleagues that were part of those magical Staley years would gladly go back under the right circumstances. We have all lived the 5-6 model, and we know what made it successful, and we know what made it didn't work. So why reinvent the wheel? We really need to go with what we know the parents want, what the teachers want, and what we all know is best for kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
And last but not certainly least is Ron.
I'm gonna shoot over here because before the meeting started, my wife called and my response to her was, I'm in a meeting and I'll call you right back. So
That's not the right response to your wife.
We're on
That's not a valid excuse.
That being said, I'll certainly keep it brief, but to start out, a huge thanks, because we were involved in the process and our voices were heard. And I know in my heart, and I know the fact that you're all voted into this position, that you're gonna do what's best for the educational well-being of those children, whatever that vote may be. And if you can walk away from this to say, you know, these are the reasons and it's educationally sound, then thumbs up and I applaud you. And this is, to me, an evening of excitement. Number one, I think Mr. Malachi mentioned that we're to the end of the line. Julie, the music references the Traveling Wilburys. If you haven't heard of the band, okay, check it out. The others, and we are to the end of the line, and we're at a new beginning. And it's so exciting to me that whatever is going to happen after this decision tonight, we're all going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to walk out of here, and we're going to make both the best of the situation. And I think that with the support of the board tonight, and with the fact that we've got awesome people in the buildings day to day doing their things, the teachers are going to get in the trenches. We've got great union leadership. We've got great district leadership, awesome custodial staff. This is going to be absolutely amazing. So many, let me go back to number one. Thanks to this board and what we have in front of us as opportunities for our children for a great future. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for your optimism. Appreciate it. Now get home to Chris.
Better pick her up.
Okay, I think that's the end of our public comment. I'd like to thank everybody for their comments. Very well thought out, passionate and polite. And I appreciate all of that. Thank you very much. Okay, next we'll go into our work study session. And we're having department reports.
Alex Rodriguez from Facilities and Chris Brewer for Ed Programs.
All right, great, thanks.
Alex, go ahead, buddy.
All right, thank you. Well, everyone, good evening. First item on our agenda here is the FEMA site inspection that took place on June 14th. FEMA, Department of Homeland Security, New York State, and ourselves were there. I gave a tour of the facilities, explained anything that was impacted by the flood that day, fielded various questions from inside the building out on the grounds. It was slated for 2 days. We had everything go so well that we didn't need the second day. So that was enjoyable.
Alex, when you say things went well, how do you mean?
There were questions, but we were able to field them quickly and gave them a good answer. So there were a lot of follow-up questions. We were prepared in where we were going to bring them, maps of damaged areas, things of that nature. So we were able to move through the building quite quickly.
The initial reports that Alex and Nate Van Weave from CNS and Justin Schaefer from Labella put together were so comprehensive that the FEMA folks didn't feel like they needed to spend a lot of time in each area. She was really well prepared to see what she was going to see, so she did move pretty quick. They did a lot of work, a lot of paperwork ahead of time. In fact, I think they said it was some of the most detailed and comprehensive reporting that they've seen in the FEMA project yet. So thanks to Alex and his team and our team of architects and construction folks.
Is that going to help fast track an answer or no?
And I'm
It just fast track that one visit.
Okay. Oh, well,
questions on that.
thanks.
The next item is lead and water testing. This was slated to take place at the very beginning of summer. It's quite a process. I'm happy to say that we tested the last couple of schools last week, and we have some results that have already gone out. We only had one failure so far. That was at RFA in the girls' locker room. That to me, it's not good that we have a failure, but in an area like that, I think that was probably missed on flushing. It's an off in the corner type area, not a lot of activity in the summer. So the plan is to flush, which is also considered remediation, retest and see where we go from there. But that was the only one so far. And we have probably 90% of the buildings done. So we have taken signage down and folks are enjoying their bubblers. They call them. It's basically the mouthpiece where you take a drink out of the fountain. Questions on that?
And how many, each building, how many different tests do you do?
There's just one test. We test the outlets, the bubblers. So probably if I was to guess right now, we've tested close to over 200 outlets.
Okay.
So far the failure rate has been really good. This is under the old regulation. The new regulation that's coming up next really reduces the parts per billion from 15 to 5. The results that I've seen so far doesn't say that we're gonna have a huge problem in the future, but there were a couple that we were probably gonna have to look at in the future, being in the range from 5 to 15. Not a lot so far, but remember, we just tested the bubblers. There are a lot of other outlets that weren't tested that were tested previously. We didn't test the bubblers because they're recommended to be shut off for the COVID pandemic.
Okay.
Okay, summer projects. These are just some things. We don't have a big capital project slate this year. So these are some in-department projects that we're working on. One of them was the Denti garden hut removal. We had to remove that. Circulation pumps in various buildings are being rebuilt. Those basically push your hot and cold water through the building's pipes to get to the air handlers and exchange air. Sidewalk repairs in various locations, Stokes, Ridge Mills, to name a couple. Although you're going to see, we have dock leveler in a future capital project. We had to get that fixed just to be able to use. That's been a huge inconvenience to food service and deliveries getting to RFA. So we had to bite the bullet and at least get it operational now. It's not 100%. It's 20 something years old. It's been exposed to the weather. So we're just pretty much getting it to function. We still need a new one. Catch basins in various locations throughout the district. Those are, you'll see them in the parking lots where the water runs to is still great. So we're repairing those and replacing some of those. Another project that we're doing is we had to wire universal power sources for a project for technology. So we had to put in new outlets in various server closets throughout the district. So our electricians have been very busy, and then I had to pull them to do fire inspection corrections. Any questions on any of those projects? And the next one is custodial staffing. We are still short. It seems like we hire someone and someone leaves. So right now we're about 4 short of custodial workers, 1 head custodian at the high school. We're waiting on a civil service test for that in the state. And we are short 1, what I call it, second shift supervisor custodian at. So, Rich is doing his best. Shelley and Jeff are helping out in that area as well, but just keeping it on the radar. We're doing just about the same as everyone else. I think we're probably doing a little better in that area.
One of the things Alex brings up about the hiring process of civil service, the state legislature has done a really nice job trying to make certification requirements easier for teachers, and really just teachers. They haven't done a whole lot to help teaching assistants, any other work. So I'm trying to work. I've mentioned it to Mary Ann Button-Shawn that they need to start taking a look at other areas of employment opportunities for public schools, because it's not just teachers where we're finding shortages. It's literally across the board. So they did a lot for bus drivers last year, but I think sometimes people think about school as you only think about teachers, and you forget that there's double that amount of people that are not teachers that are also trying to keep things afloat. And so civil service requirements, I think, if you've been on the board for any length of time, you will know a lot of times civil service barriers are oftentimes what lead to staff shortages more so than anything else. So it is important to point that out, that even if you can find bodies, sometimes the civil service requirements prevent them from being hired in a public school. And we are experiencing that with custodians. Security staff is another one that comes up a lot.
I'll agree, Peter, that, just recently had 2 fields of the prison guards. Their civil service requirements have been relaxed, and also postal employees have been relaxed. Those are 2 areas that used to be so hard to get into. Those have been removed. Okay, the next item is the Turin Road easement. That's the National Grid easement for their distribution there. So that's going to begin middle of next month and end in the middle of October. The reason why they have a year is that's for a growing season. So I spoke with gentlemen just before I came here this evening, and they like to cover 2 growing seasons because they disturb the soil in surrounding areas. They like to make sure that they have a growing season out there so that they can make sure everything's just the way they found it, right down to the type of grass and so forth. So the work area is outlined in there as well. So all of that is for just in case. They're telling me that it should take about a little longer than a month to start in the middle of next questions on that? And phase 3 work had been approved by the New York State Education Department on July 29th. So we're gonna start getting that out for bid and be able to start that work at the high school, which including flashing restoration at RFA, 1,300 stair improvements, the dock leveler replacement, okay, that's what I just spoke about. And depending on how those come in, you'll have some alternate bids, maybe replacement of roof section 3, roof section 4, scoreboard foundation, scoreboard, and main stair railing system. So hopefully the base bid items come in under what we guess, and then we'll free up some money for some alternates. And then when that happens, we'll probably get together and prioritize the alternates if they haven't already been prioritized now.
Which scoreboard you're referencing?
The stadium.
The stadium? Sorry, okay. Can you kind of give everyone or the community an update on the stadium and what you can expect there when they're visiting for football games as well?
The stadium itself.
Yeah, the stadium itself and, maybe some of the facilities that are. I
Well,
think-
right now, the interior of the stadium is still off limits. But I don't see any reason why the stand.
The outside will be the same as it was for graduation. We'll have the trailers on order for
There.
restrooms again. Staff is working on developing a concessions opportunity for folks that visit the games to be able to participate, so.
Outdoors. So.
Mhm.
It's like, bringing that up, though, but, that to me, I'm a clock watcher. There's deadlines all the time in my world. At a certain point in time, we're going to just start thinking about what we're going to do for next year there.
In terms of the stadium itself?
For use of the stadium, graduation, games, other things that want to go there. We have to come up with a plan, I think, sooner than later, so that we don't have any anxiety on what we're going to do with graduation, when, where, and all that good stuff. We have about 10 months to work on it, and I think we need all of that time. So,
I agree, but
start.
one flashpoint first, and then we'll get to the next one. So, thank you.
All right. Anybody
Anything
have any
else?
questions on any of that? No, that was it.
Thanks, Al.
Great, thank you, Al.
Have a good evening.
You too. You're up, Chris.
Yes, you got a timer of 3 minutes.
Hang on, I gotta get an hour list.
Okay, so just a couple updates from our department. We have pre-K and kindergarten screenings going on throughout the month. We've had a wonderful start to curriculum writing at the elementary, ELA 7 and 8 and algebra at this point. So we have a lot of teachers, quite a few teachers behind me. Thank you for the work that you're doing on rewriting some of those curriculums in those grade levels. We've been doing different professional learning opportunities, both in the district, out of the district, online, and also through the Rome Teacher Center. And I'll be sharing that information coming up in January. We'll be talking about that in ed programs a little bit. I just wanted to say a shout out to Dana Benzo, who led regionally a professional development over in Vernon Downs last week on play-based learning. Folks from all over came to listen to Dana and some of the things that she had to offer with play-based learning. So thank you. Our set plans, just wanted to update everyone for Gansevoort and Denti have been approved by the state. Joy's in the hopper right now. We just got an email from them. We'll be looking at that next. Just so that you're aware, our DSEP plan is not approved by the state. They just send back a couple of recommendations. Basically, they said you're using kind of the same things you used last year, which we've already talked about. So I will share that also at programs. Just so you're aware, Bellamy is a TSI school, which means their set plan also does not have to be approved by the state, just approved by the Board of Education. So I'll present all 4 of those. I'm hoping in next board meeting in August to give you a rundown on that. We should have ed programs too to kind of go through those, just waiting for Joy at this point. Dana and Jen are working on the title grant, making good progress. They've completed the needs assessment, so we're anxious to hear a little bit more about that and their progress in the next coming weeks. I am waiting, just so you're aware, normally by this time we have the same grant out from the state. I called them several times. They still have not put it out for anyone. So my assumption at this point is it's going to be a little bit later than it was last year. Of course, I'll probably put an August 31 deadline on it for us and say you only have 2 weeks to do it, but we'll make do with it. But just for your information, there will be a little bit of increase in funding to the schools. It's going to be 225,000 this year. Normally it's 200. And for Mount Bellamy, it's 7,500 because they're what's that?
75,000, right?
You said 7,500.
75,000. My apologies. 75,000 because they are a TSI school. Wednesday, I'm working with a team to update our RTI plan and work on separating the AIS plan from that. Basically, what we're really looking at is the new interventions that have come into place since it was last looked at. We have some old interventions in there, so we're going to put some new interventions, and we'll also present that to the board to have that reapproved at a later date. My hope is by September, early September, we should have that all finished.
Chris, we might have some new members that don't really know what RTI stands for.
That's a response to intervention. That's the plan that we have in place for students who need extra help, either with reading or with math. 3 points of data have to be presented. They've got to be looked at by a team before a student is able to go into a tier 2 or a tier 3 intervention. I'll explain that too, a little bit of that program. So if you're there, feel free to reach out and I can go into a little bit more detail on that. We are also going to be working with Deanna over at the RIC next week coming up to clean up RTI Edge, which is where we put all of our RTI information into. It hasn't been cleaned up for quite a while and a lot of the interventions are old. So we're going to make that as user-friendly as we possibly can. Right now, I would say it's not user-friendly at all because there's too much to teach from that. CTLE, as most of you know, new teachers have to have 100 hours of CTLE credit to retain their certificate over 5 years. We are a CTLE provider in it's supposed to be every 5 years, but because of COVID, they got behind and just said, hey, you're good still for another 5 years or a couple years. They just sent us some information that they need this done by August 31st, right away, that we want to upgrade our CTLE. Attestation is what it's called. So that's not going to be difficult. We've got our professional learning plan all ready to go. I just need to upload some information. As soon as that gets back to us, we'll get that done. And that will give us our CTL, what's called our CTLE number. So not only our teachers will be able to earn CTLE credit here, if we provide some professional development to an outside school where they come here for professional development, they can also earn CTLE credits through us for their certificate. Frontline evaluation next week. We're going to begin rolling that over to the new school year. We're rolling over the part of the evaluations so that come September, everybody's in their spot, whether they're tenured, non-tenured, and we just make sure that we have all the teachers in the right buildings so that our administrators can formally observe them through that tool. Likewise for our principals. We had a summer school wrap up. I've got some information, hopefully present that at Ed Programs meeting coming up. Our reading program, our pilot this year was the MyOn program, which is all part of our STAR platform. We put that out for all of our students to use. We're gaining some really interesting individual or independent reading data on our students that we're going to be sharing with the building principals. There's a little contest going on for the kid who reads the most, and they'll be receiving some prizes toward the end of the school year. The little libraries, this was something a few years back before COVID hit. We had Jed Mush and his group start, the kids build little libraries for each individual school. Those are all ready to go. There's a little bit of a setback with COVID, and we're working with Alex's team to get one of those libraries put outside of every school so the kids and parents, families will have access to literacy 24 hours a day. They can take a book, they can bring a book, they can keep the book, whatever they choose to do with it, that will be theirs. We did purchase through our SIG funding quite a few years ago, our title funding, books to go in those. So the principals just held on to it, and that'll be upcoming in the fall. Last thing is I've been working, actually two schools, myself and VBS are working with Innovare and Griffiths Institute. They are going for a National Science Foundation grant, which is pretty hefty for this area. And what they're trying to build is a STEM ecosphere in central New York. And they've asked for our input as the educators what needs to go into that NSF grant. So we've been working with them on that. Likewise, I've got to know a couple people over there really well, and we were able to, 2 weeks ago, put on a field trip for some of our administrators, our science teachers, our elementary teachers to go over to Innovere to take a look at what they do over there, the types of work they do over there, and then also to make a connection. Got a good connection now, Enrico, who's ready and willing to work with us on any STEM project and get the funding for us for after-school programs, for summer programs, and get our kids involved in those. So we're working together with her at this point. And that's all I have for my review. Unless there's any questions.
Can I just clarify for Cassie, John, and Kelly, when Chris is talking about STEP and DSIP and all those acronyms in SIG, all of that's tied to the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, not to be confused with ESSER, which is the federal legislation for education. We have those 3 schools that are on the needs improvement list, which is the SEP plan. SCEP stands for School Comprehensive Education Plan. As a result of having any building identified, the district becomes identified and does a DSIP, the DCIP, which is called the District Comprehensive Improvement Plan. So it's a little bit backwards in that the district plan does not get approved by SED, but the building plans must get approved by SED. And then what we try and do, they don't have to align through the legislation, but we try to make sure the district plan supports the building plans, the building plans support the district plan, so that it's kind of goes together, right? So, and each building does receive funding. The acronym for SIG, SIG, is a school improvement grant. It is a part of the ESSA funding. So those schools receive funding directly, the district receives funding, and Bellamy is being a TSI, that stands for Targeted School Improvement. That's kind of, you're not identified, but you could be identified if you don't watch out for these precursors. All of this has kind of been sitting in limbo since COVID started, and they haven't really updated what schools are identified. They haven't changed a whole lot of the markers about why and when. So it is probably the one single thing in ed programs that consumes the most time in the summer that needs to kind of get done before the school year starts, is those buildings developing those plans and the DSIP plan and having to look that through. So I just want to make sure it clarified some of that, because that's like drinking through a fire hose. But that one is, that's one that you kind of will hear a little bit about at this time of year, and then get a little bit of a briefing or update throughout the course of the year that how buildings are progressing through those plans. Thanks, Chris.
Chris, before I let you go, I know we had some discussion this past week when we did our agenda meeting, and there was some discussion about the 5-8 plan, and I think you had put together a bullet point email that was sent to board members, and I was just wondering if maybe you can highlight some of those things today to maybe give a sense as to some of the things that we've been given to consider in terms of trying to make a decision on the configuration. If that's okay, once you're ready to do that.
I'm happy to. Want me to?
Sure.
Some of it's in your email, there's a couple other things too. These are just considerations. I'm not advocating one way or the other. It's not my vote, but these are some considerations, some things looking forward, that if there was a potential 5-8, some things we might be able to do with it academically, looking down the road. The first is allowing students to take or have the opportunity to take electives at an earlier age, because some of the electives, for example, family consumer science, technology, those middle school ones can actually be pushed down all the way to 5th grade, and begin that process and allow those kids to take those at an earlier age. And when they get up into the 8th grade, at that point, they would be able to take a few more electives from the high school and get a little bit further ahead within high school. That's one of the things that would be very unique as far as the school district goes. That's not really widely done around this region. When I was building principal, we brought our 6th grade actually up to the high school. So we had high school kids and 6th graders working together, and there were a lot of leadership opportunities that our 12th graders were able to do with our 6th graders. But we brought the 6th graders up because there was obviously financial stress at that time, and we were able to get those 6th graders and some of the other stuff out of the way for the kids as they moved up into high school, and allow them to do some extra high school credits. This in turn, if we get kids on a jump start and they start seeing success at 8th grade into 9th grade, can also help to improve graduation rates and allow them to take some other things that they might be able to in high school. It opens up some opportunities for students to participate in career and technical opportunities, internships by getting some of those things out of the way, in manufacturing, STEM related fields at Business Park. Can also help to allow families and students to jumpstart their college education. We've got some things already in place with the Propel program, with P-TECH, the number of AP courses we offer. But there's a potential with this too, in extending that Propel program, that we could have families and students have an associate's degree before they leave high school and save quite a bit of money as far as loans go. It could possibly help strengthen our academic program at the 5-8 level, allowing both horizontal and vertical planning. This is something we've talked about a great deal with collaborating. Sometimes it's tough when you have 5th and 6th graders all across the district to get everybody together on the same page. So there could be an opportunity there. Another opportunity is we could possibly begin foreign language earlier in the 5th grade. If we can bring we have our foreign language teachers in a 5-8 configuration. This is a chance for more kids to receive that biliteracy seal that we talk about a little bit. It's also an opportunity that we could have our kids possibly become bilingual or trilingual for kids who were interested in doing that. Again, that would be very unique to our region. I don't know of any other school. There's a few schools that dabble with having a Spanish teacher come down once a week with their classes. But this could be very unique, a unique opportunity for our 5th graders and getting them started on a foreign language earlier. There could possibly be some, or creating some smoother transitions for kids. I know Chris talked about some transitions. You take a look, one of the transitions, obviously elementary, you have one common branch teacher. At the K-4 level, as you come up to 5-6, there's a possibility, we've heard about team teaching up here, where we can transition kids from one common branch teacher to now 2 common branch teachers at 5-6, and then eventually go up to 4 once they reach 7th and 8th grade onward into high school. There could be an opportunity for intramural sports with our 5th and 6th graders. That's unheard of across this region. I don't know of very many schools that do it within a school. If you had 2 5-8 buildings, certainly have some competition against each other. That could also provide some intramural things to go on in other parts of our region too, to be able to compete just a little bit and introduce our kids to sports a little bit younger here. Could also develop some leadership opportunities if it's done right for our 8th graders to work with our 5th and 6th graders, both academically as tutors after school and also in clubs and activity. There's also something thinking outside the box, and I'm a bigger picture thinker. Obviously, I have to be in my job, but there's another opportunity that could lend itself that could not only put Rome ahead of the game in the region, but also in the state that doesn't happen. You could possibly take a look at many Southern schools and Western schools create magnet schools. There's a possibility that you could have, and this is just a possibility, you could have 2 different 5-8 configurations and buildings that kids could go to based on their interest. This is just an example. You could have a school that leans a little bit more towards STEM and STEM related activities after school and in their programming. You could have another one that lends itself more to the arts and allow people to pick and choose where they'd like to go to school. It's just a thought. That would certainly be very unique for this region, and it could possibly have Rome lead the way for a change within our state, because we don't have magnet schools. We have very few charter schools, and this could be very unique of having a situation like this where kids can become leaders in those fields. Ultimately, whatever you decide, we're going to make it work to the best of our ability and help these kids the way we need to. But 5-8 does present some unique opportunities and a lot of outside the box thinking that could possibly make Rome the choice of people moving into this area as opposed to a New Hartford, a BBS, or other things. A lot of things are going on the Griffiths Park. If you're not real familiar with it, there's a unique opportunity here if we do it the right way. Thank you.
Any questions for Chris? Based on that?
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
I just have a question.
Okay, sorry.
With the opportunities you're speaking about with language and things like that, some of the things that you had named off on your list, are any of those things you would be able to do in a standalone 5-6?
If you have teachers traveling, or you would have to hire more teachers dedicated to those buildings.
Which we would have to do anyway if we had two 5-8s. So it's kind of duplicated. Okay. Because I think those are great ideas, and I would love to see those at the 5-6 or the 5-8, whatever decisions made. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So we can push on through and deal with the agenda, or we want to take a break? We want to
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Thanks.
There you go.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and resume the meeting tonight. So we'll start with the consent agenda. I'll accept the resolution to accept the consent agenda. No. That would be your motion. So a motion by Ms. Levesey, second. Second by Mr. Nash. Sorry, yes.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to the regular agenda. And the consent agenda, by the way, is found on pages 2 through
5.
5. Okay, on to the regular agenda. Finance, there's no action items tonight, finance, and do we have a,
I don't believe we have a meeting scheduled yet. I don't believe
so
so.
waiting to hear from Dave on that?
Yes.
So hopefully that will occur in the next couple of weeks. I'll have my next meeting. And then I'll notify the board by email for anyone that wants to attend. Facilities, action item. 1, resolution to approve easement for municipal purposes. Whereas Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation, hereinafter referred to as NMPC, seeks a perpetual right of way and easement from the Rome City School District, hereinafter referred to as the district, to construct, reconstruct, relocate, extend, repair, maintain, operate, inspect, patrol, and at its pleasure abandon or remove underground gas distribution facilities, including a line or line of pipes, valves, fittings, handholds, manholes, conduit, vaults, housings, connectors, pedestals, closures, markers, cables, connections to above ground facilities, braces, fittings, foundations, anchors, lateral service lines, and other fixtures and appurtenances collectively hereinafter referred to as the facilities for the transmission and distribution of natural and manufactured gas for public or private use in, upon, over, under, and across a portion of the district's land described in that certain deed recorded in the United County Clerk's Office dated July 5, 2018. In Liber 2019 of deeds at page 691, consisting of land being part of tax parcel identification number 223.015-3-18, hereinafter referred to as the parcel, located at 500 Turn Street, Rome, County of Oneida, State of New York, as set forth in a proposed easement instrument, hereinafter called the easement, and to renew, replace, add to, or otherwise change the facilities within the easement for the purpose of providing affiliated service. And whereas the district seeks to grant said easement for the benefit of the district and the benefit of the community to provide distribution of natural and manufactured gas for public or private use. And whereas in conjunction with the grant of the easement, NMPC seeks a temporary easement and right to enter a portion of the district's lands for the limited purpose of ingress egress workspace for construction vehicles, crews, equipment, and material for the installation of facilities in the easement as set forth in a proposed temporary workspace agreement. And whereas the location of the easement and the temporary easement do not interfere with the district's educational programs or operations, and the property subject to the easement and the temporary easement is not required for school district purposes. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Rome City School District as follows. Resolution to approve easement for municipal purposes continue. 1, the Board of Education determines that the conveyance of the easement encumbering the parcel and the temporary easement is an unlisted action under the regulations of the State Environmental Quality Review Act and designates itself as lead agency. 2, upon review of all information required to make a determination under the regulations of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the Board of Education determines that the action will not result in any large or important environmental impacts, and therefore it is one which will not have a significant impact on the environment, and a negative declaration has been prepared and filed with the district clerk. 3, the district shall convey the easement and the temporary easement to NMPC for the purpose of constructing facilities and providing distribution of natural and manufactured gas for public and private use by instruments approved by the district's legal counsel. 4, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent of schools, officers, and employees of the district to execute the easement and the temporary easement instruments with such modifications and revisions, other than a change to the fees, location, or dimensions, as may be approved by the superintendent of schools and legal counsel, which approval shall be conclusively shown by the execution of the instruments, and take all actions necessary or convenient to complete the transfer and the recording of said instruments. 5, the officers, employees, and agents of the district are authorized and directed on behalf of the Board of Education to take all actions required or provided for by the provisions of the instruments, and to execute and deliver all such additional certificates, instruments, and documents, and to do all such other acts and things as may be necessary or convenient to record the instruments and affect the purposes of this resolution, and to cause compliance with terms, covenants, and conditions of the instruments. 6, upon Board of Education approval, this resolution will take effect immediately. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. McGurl. Any discussion? You're still awake. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. On to educational programs. I think we better.
Yeah, we'll just note that the next meeting is August 24th. Yes, 4 o'clock.
Excellent. Is that here in the room?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, Calendar's all set, goals set, we're on our way.
Good.
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, people operation. Elena, you're gonna give me those eyes after that resolution I just read?
Okay. Action item number 1, resolution to adjust stipend. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby adjusts the following stipend. For Rihanna Zappa, the ski club advisor, $700 to $900 effective 2021 to 2022. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fontana. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 2, resolution to accept retirement. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby accepts with regret the retirement of Christopher Whitmore, Director of Food Service, effective September 30th, 2025. I move the resolution.
Any second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nash. Any discussion?
Congratulations to Chris. We're lucky we got him for 3 more years. Fantastic. Probably one of the best food service directors you'll find anywhere in the state. So congratulations to him. I know this was not a decision he made lightly, but we have him for 3 years. So
Yeah.
we'll get somebody trained good.
Good. Terrific, terrific work. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 3, resolution to appoint sporting event personnel. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following sporting event personnel as listed on page 8 of tonight's agenda. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Levesey. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 4, resolution to appoint fall coaching personnel. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following fall coaching personnel as listed on page 9 of tonight's agenda. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Canuti. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 5, resolution to create position. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby creates the following position, bus driver / bus dispatcher. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nash. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 6, resolution to abolish a position. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby abolishes the following position, bus driver. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Angelino. Any discussion? We're creating a dual position.
It's a vacant
Yeah.
position currently, so we're just eliminating the single bus driver and adding some responsibilities of the dispatcher. It should, the goal is to make sure we have a dispatcher at the garage until 6 or 7 p.m. when kids are back from field trips or clubs or athletic events. So if there is a need, the parents to call somebody there to answer the phone at 4 o'clock.
Because it might confuse some people that we're creating and then. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 7, resolution to create positions. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education creates the following positions: assistant purchasing agent, office specialist, 11 months. I move the resolution.
Seconds.
Second.
Second by Ms. Canoe. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 8, resolution to appoint intramural personnel. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following intramural personnel as listed on page 9 of tonight's agenda. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. McGurl. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 9, resolution to accept agreement that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the agreement between the district and the Rome Teachers Association. I move the resolution.
Second by Mr. Angelino, in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 10, resolution to appoint instructional personnel that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following instructional personnel as listed on page 10 of tonight's agenda. The expiration date of the above probationary appointment for classroom teaching position is tentative and conditional only, except to the extent required by the applicable provisions of section 2509 of the education law. In order to be granted tenure, a classroom teacher or principal must receive composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to section 3012-C and or 3012-D of the education law of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. And if the classroom teacher or principal receives an ineffective composite or overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, the teacher shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Monroe. Any questions or any discussion? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 11, resolution to transfer staff. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby transfers the following staff as listed on pages 11 and 12 of tonight's agenda. And move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Becky. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 12, resolution to appoint non-instructional personnel probationary that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following non-instructional personnel probationary. Brian Calcara, Business Office, Senior Account Clerk, float, $36,195.43. Salary effective date, August 15, 2022. I move the resolution.
Any second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Angelino. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 13, resolution to appoint in-school suspension personnel that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following in-school suspension personnel. Marty Nemechek, effective September 1st, 2022 through August 31st, 2026, $25.79 an hour. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Kennedy. Any discussion?
This should not have an end date on it. There's no probationary period for in-school suspension personnel. They're not a probationary track following 3012B.
Do we have to make a motion to amend or?
Not if you guys are comfortable with just striking it.
That's fine. I
Wh-
don't
wh-
know.
Where is it?
Are they
right at the district office?
This is at RFA.
Okay.
Does anybody have an issue with just striking it?
No.
No.
Go ahead and do that. And as amended, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Number 14, resolution to appoint extracurricular clubs that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints the following extracurricular clubs as listed on pages 13 and 14 of tonight's agenda. I move the resolution.
Second. Second by Mr. Angelino. Any discussion?
Yes, I will need to abstain from this resolution. Because of a personal relationship.
Any other discussion?
Is there a reason it's only RFA? Do we not have any other?
We have some from Scholar, just not quite complete yet.
Okay.
So we try and wait till they're all complete and do them at once.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we have 8 in favor and 1 absent. Okay. Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.
You have an idea of when the next committee meeting is
Our
gonna be?
next meeting will be August 22nd at 3:15 here in this very room.
Very good.
3:15, you said?
Yeah.
I think we talked about that.
I think they should be on the board calendar.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent, thank you. Policy.
All right, Karen, Peter and I met, and we are going to tackle kind of at the series level. So we are currently working on the 2000s. I'd like to say we're making some good progress. We are almost complete. We are meeting just as a small committee this Friday to kind of review the initial feedback from the policies we've reviewed. But it does look like we will be going through all of the 2000 series at that meeting. So it will be a big agenda, hopefully, for the August 26th meeting.
Very good.
That's why it's at 9, so it's all day.
All right.
Different policy, Chairman, Mr. Nash.
Okay. On to miscellaneous business. Number 1, resolution to modify the registration of existing schools due to a new grade configuration. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the reconfiguration of the district's elementary schools to represent a grade configuration of K through 4. This configuration will be effective no earlier than the 2025-2026 academic year. Affected schools, names, and locations are to be determined. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. McGurl. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, resolution to modify the registration of existing schools due to a new grade configuration. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the reconfiguration of the district's intermediate level program to represent a grade configuration of 5-8. This configuration will be effective no earlier than the 2025-2026 academic year. Affected schools, names, and locations are to be determined. I move the resolution. Any second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nash. Any discussion?
Yes, I just have a quick note to read here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you to the community members, parents, and teachers who have voiced their opinions and concerns at meetings like tonight and through emails to the board. I take the opportunity, I take the input of the community very seriously and believe it is vitally important that the rest of the board takes the community input seriously as well. We were elected by the community to serve as trustees for the community. When making decisions, the board should seek the advice where appropriate of the district's administrators, teachers, employees, and community members. In this case, the response from the community and teachers has been crystal clear. When presented the options of having 2 5-8 schools or a standalone 5-6 school, it's been a resounding vote for a standalone 5-6 school for various reasons. I'm disappointed that our way to this vote and decision has been with the thought enough community input has been received. It is important to mention that while community input and a teacher survey was sought back in January and February, based on the highly debated proposed grade banding option, there's been little outreach to the decision we are trying to reach tonight. The only real input we have is through emails and personal interactions from what I've seen that has been highly negative regarding the proposed 2 5-8 plan. To touch on some of the points the community members made as far as equity, there is nothing more equitable than having all of the students in 5th and 6th grades in the district attend the same school. I can't say that enough. I think that's what we've been reaching for with equity, and I think that solves a lot of problems. We don't need to debate which school has what resources. Everybody's in one place, and we can provide the best education possible. Splitting the entire city into 2 middle schools, 1 new school, and 1 retrofit school at a critical time for the emotional and social development of the students will lead to a division among students, staff, and the community. Disruptions, having 5-8 students together would require multiple bell schedules, arrival times, and transitions coming into and departing the building. Yes, could this be solved with the logistics, but a lot of manpower, a lot of hours, a lot of planning when you can just simply physically separate the 5th and 6th graders from the 7th and 8th. Transitions, 9th grade is one of the most critical times for student academic success, and bringing a split cohort together, as mentioned tonight, is shown to be disruptive in supporting students' career and college goals. This could adversely affect graduation rates. I toured this trial facility just last week, and it was clearly designed with the intent to support 7th and 8th grade, 8th grade needs. for science labs, technologies, art, and music. And it's very well suited for those capabilities. And I was very impressed walking through that building. Trying to retrofit this building to house 5 through 8 students would be costly, disruptive, and not fiscally responsible. Even with millions of dollars of renovations, it would never be equal to a newly constructed building, never. Even under its current design, the teachers and administrators are unable, as mentioned tonight, to keep 7th and 8th graders separated. Trying to keep 2 grades on separate floors may be impossible unless there are significant and costly renovations. The RTA presidents say that the only consistent variables that have been shown time and again to impact student learning and achievement are student-teacher relationships and instructional delivery practices. Student-teacher relationships are directly impacted by teacher morale, and one of the greatest impacts on teacher morale is voice and impact on decision-making. In summary, I hope that the board listens to the community and votes in favor of the standalone 5-6 building. The teachers are the ones who live daily with the students, and their voices should be listened to when making such an important decision. Of the 2 options being presented tonight, the community teachers have made it emphatically clear that building a standalone 5-6 school provides the most equity, unity, stability, and longevity while providing opportunities for academic improvement. Thank you very much. That's all.
Anybody else?
I just want to, obviously, I've spoken to the last 2. One, Joe, I want to thank you for pushing this forward to the point where we are. One, I think that's something we should all be proud of, that we are at this point. And today it was really important for me in this room. The people who spoke and the people who are here are in my own family, have been my child's kindergarten teacher, principal, science teacher, my neighbors, people I went to school with from elementary school. These are the people in our neighborhoods, the people that are our neighbors, people that we trust, and they're telling us to vote on a 5-6 standalone, not only with the community's voice and our teachers' voice, but the things that have been brought up in emails from professionals. It makes sense to us in every email with things that we can do. I think we have a bright future ahead. We should be proud of that. And we all need to think long and hard before going one way or the other.
I know I thought long and hard, and I know that over the past 2 years, we've given multiple opportunities for people to come forward and provide input. So to say that we somehow, to insinuate somehow that we haven't done that, I think is insulting, number one, and incorrect, number 2. As far as accepting what the RC has to say and trying to project like we somehow are not respecting their opinions if we go with a different route here. And I'm not sure if we're going to end up that way or not, but we can agree that right now, nobody knows for certain what model is truly the best for our kids. And again, I wasn't even going to speak to this because I've spent hours, and when I mean hours, I mean days responding to emails to everybody, because it's not like I don't do quick, thank you for your consideration and then send out an email, in 5 minutes. I sit and I consider each and every point that people have made in every single email that they've sent to me. And I've tried to explain to them in detail why I favor one model over another. And it's not because I'm discounting what they have to say. It's just that I respectfully disagree. And quite frankly, with the 5-6 model, I can appreciate all the things that it can offer. But the one thing that really bothers me about the 5-6 model is that there is a humongous flaw with the 5-6 model. And that flaw is, and it was repeated here tonight by Ms. Kenneth, who was, I thank you so much for those comments. But she admitted that with the right administration, with the right leadership, with the right strong leadership, it can work. And I agree. And if somebody can come in here and guarantee me that we're going to have strong veteran leadership for every year that 5-6 is in place, I'd probably be in favor of 5-6. But you cannot guarantee me that, because I sat here as a board member in my early years And I saw a parade of administrators that were replaced year after year because they were ineffective in that model. And it crushed the school. It was terrible. It was a terrible experience. And I had my kids going through it at that time. So I was there to, as a parent, to experience 5-6 firsthand when there was not strong leadership. It was awful. And the fact of the matter is we're not going to have Fred Zamperetti or Karen Miller or people like those strong leaders in that position, quite frankly. And we can't direct administrators where to go. They decide, okay? They have a very strong union, just like the teachers have a very strong union. They decide where they want to go. So we can't identify a strong administrator and say, you go to that school and you make it work. We can't do that. And so the fact of the matter is that we can't guarantee veteran strong leadership in that model. Then for me, that is the fatal flaw to it. And I'm sorry, it won't work. And it cannot be sustained. There's a lot of great points, believe me, and I've considered it all. But there's also a lot of great things about the 5-8 that I think that are just being ignored because everybody's so focused on the fear that 8th graders are going to somehow corrupt our 5th graders. But I think that Chris has helped to identify some potential answers to that by offering mentoring opportunities. And I don't know that it's going to be impossible to separate these kids from the 8th graders if that's ultimately what we want, because ultimately it might turn out that, you know what, 5th graders and 8th graders get along pretty well. And we don't see the problems that we've seen historically. It could work out that way. I mean, you can't discount that as a possibility because it does work in other schools. So for me, that's why I'm voting in favor of this. And you can all hate me afterwards, but I can tell you at least I've gone through and I've checked all the boxes that were concerns when we started this process. Lowering the class size, reducing the number of transitions, making sure that relationships are built. And you can't tell me that relationships are built better in 2 years than they are in 4. I'm sorry, you're never going to convince me of that argument. All of the factors that I've listed in the several emails that I've responded to all of you with, and you know who you are. And I'm sorry for those of you that I haven't gotten the emails back to, but I was just overwhelmed with them all, and I just couldn't get to everybody. But believe me, I read them all. So that's where I'm at on this. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on it. There's, obviously, I'm not going to go through each and every concern here. Obviously, there's things that we'll have to address at a later date. But if there's anybody else that wants to speak, we can. As to the model, if not, we'll go ahead with it, and we'll do it by roll call. So
Yeah, I'll just say something real quick. When the models were first came out, I was 4 or 5, 6. I'll be honest with you, I was 4, 5, 6. And the more information I got about a big 5-6 building, and then recently with Dr. Fontana's analysis of the academic advantages of a 5-8 building, and then Chris solidified it for me too. I just feel that there's just more positives than negatives. My only concern, which has been brought up, is how do you do Stroud? Now, that's not my area of expertise. There's people a lot smarter than me that will figure this out. We have 3 years, possibly 4 years to figure this out. That part of it, but I think academically for students going forward, and it's in the best interest of the city of Rome. And I will be voting in favor.
I just wanted to give a quick thank you. So I have now been on this board for 1 month and 3 days. So I owe a couple thank yous. A thank you to the board and Peter for the additional redistricting and ad hocs to make us comfortable getting to the point we are. I know that takes a lot of patience because you guys have been doing this a lot longer than us. So I just wanted to genuinely say thank you for all of that. I wanted to say thank you to Karen and Joe for putting together such a great proposal. If you would have told me a month and 4 days ago that I would ever vote for a K4, I probably would have said you could not possibly think that. But that is what patience and letting us take time to digest and understand all of these different things has kind of let us down. So thank you both for that proposal and the work you did to that. And my last thank you goes out to the district community and our stakeholders. I was on your side of that fence a month and 4 days ago, and I know there is a lot to follow. There's a lot to chase, and everyone has their own emotional ties to this. So I think I'm going to speak for myself when I say, know that we've read your emails, we've listened to the feedback, and we're all voting based on that. And even though it might not be what configuration, like it's not K6, right? You now know that based on our vote. We really did look at boxes of criteria. So what gives us the lowest class size? So the things that we value are the things that led most of us to those decisions. So thank you all again, and please continue to support, because we are all entitled to a different perspective on how we want to lead the district.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize the difference of opinion doesn't mean there's a lack of respect. For me, there's not that connection, I guess, especially when I'm trying to approach something from kind of an objective, dispassionate approach. So, no matter which way the vote goes, please know that 1,000% I respect the administrators and teachers of this district. And just because if it doesn't go your way, I just don't want that to mean that I somehow don't respect it, because that could be further from the truth. So, want to put that out there. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and do the roll call.
Mrs. Princy,
So we're voting
It's either yes for the 5-8 or no for the 5-8. So
no for 5-8.
Dr. Fontana,
Yes.
Nutty,
No.
Mrs. Levesey,
No.
Mr. Maggiolino,
No.
Ms. McGurl,
Yes.
Mr. Nash,
Yes.
Ms. Reddick,
No.
and Mr. Malatch.
yes.
We have 4 yes and 5 no.
Okay. Motion does not carry. Next. Resolution to number 3, action item number 3, miscellaneous business. Resolution to modify the registration of existing schools due to a new grade configuration. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the reconfiguration of the district's intermediate level program to represent a grade configuration of 5, 6, 7, 8. This configuration will be effective no earlier than the 2025-2026 academic year. Affected schools, names, and locations are to be determined. I move the resolution.
Okay.
Second by Ms. Mrs. Curran. We'll do I suppose a roll call for this one as well.
Mrs. Princy,
Yes.
Dr. Fontana,
Yes.
Mrs. Nutty,
Yes.
Mrs. Levesey,
Yes.
Mr. Maggiolino,
Yes.
Ms. McGurl,
Yes.
Mr. Nash,
No.
Ms. Reddick,
Yes.
Mr. Malachi.
No. Motion carries. Okay, resolution 4. Resolution to adopt the district-wide safety plan for the 2022-2023 school year. Resolved that the Board of Education adopt the 2022-2023 district-wide safety plan. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Mr. Maggiolino. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, action item 5, resolution to appoint a safety committee. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, a safety committee be appointed consisting of the following members. As listed in the resolution at page 15, action item 5. I move the resolution.
Second.
Second by Ms. Canuti. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. And any old business? Looks like none.
Nope.
Okay. At this point, I think we're going into a executive session. I would accept a motion to discuss personnel related matters and the employment of a particular individual, and it is not expected that we will return to the regular meeting. We would adjourn it at the end of the executive session. So I will accept a motion to go into executive session.
Move it.
Motion by Mr. Nash. Second. Second by Ms. Grenzi. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, folks. Thank you all for coming.
So. So when, like this one, when you say